Welcome to your restorative practice. We're going to start upside down today. So I want you to be at a wall space, and the opportunity arises with our body to be up on a bolster and against a wall for support. So let's place the bolster at the base. It's right up against it. There's no space between the bolster and the wall. All right, and then you're going to have a blanket nearby, and it's going to be placed for your head to rest on. So have it close, okay, unless you're really, really tall. And you're going to sit up on the short edge of the bolster. So it looks like it's a teeter-totter. Right on the other side, it's going to kind of lift up. And you're going to scoot your sitting bones pretty close to the wall. The closer you get, the better, the easier to get upside down. Now, as you lower down into your arm, you're going to roll and swing the legs upside down. And as you adjust the pelvis on top of the bolster, being centered on your props doesn't guarantee you're centered, but it's a start, I think. So take your time here. Don't rush it. Right, this is a nice way to reverse the gravitational pull in our muscles, our organs, but really to create that inner waterfall. All right, so that lymphatic drainage, right, that goes back towards the upper chest. So take the feet so they separate, and when the legs have that separation, there's such a great amount of space. Of course, I don't have the biggest wall space on one side, but this is fine. This is adequate for what I'm doing. But I still want to create that gentle, supported back bend. Okay, let's start with a few different movements before we stand up. Head is resting on the blanket. Ribs are centering back towards the heart. And then just let the feet slide to each other. And bend the knees so they start to draw towards your chest, and then just bring the feet together, the soles of the feet together, the knees apart. Feel the feet slide down and bring both hands so the hands press to the inner leg. Now the inner leg could be deemed the inner knee. It could be the adductors. But take a few moments with just some mild palpation so you can get a feeling of that alternating structure of legs, extremities, alternate movement during the day, and feeling as you're centering the hips. Now, if it feels too much on a knee, you just move the feet a little bit higher, and it's likely going to be easier on your knee joints. Okay, so do take a few moments here. The hands press. You don't have to just stay with a still pressing. You can kind of alternate to stimulate that reverse flow in the legs, just the energy in these areas that can be kind of, well, they definitely dropped, right, with gravity. So reversing that flow back towards the pelvis, to the vital organs here in the belly. So it's a good pose for the kidneys because there's such an interesting back bend that occurs for the whole time. And then just bring the knees towards your chest. Get a sandbag if you have one, and you'll bring that up, and the destination is the feet, the soles of the feet for the sandbag. But as you slip it over to the bottoms of the feet, if you don't want to use a sandbag, even if you have one, you don't have to. But as you stretch the legs up, it's kind of a weight training to get them to lift. It's not necessarily, hamstring stretch on. It gets there with time. So feel the heels touch the wall. If it's the sand on the heels, you might have to adjust it with the feet with some separation. Some of us have the feet really close on this one. Some feel more comfortable with them farther out. But stare down your knees. So the knees might be turning out a little bit. See if you can just press the heels slightly outwards. Right? And if the seat is not at the wall anymore, that's fine. That ambition has to kind of go away about this time. If you keep working to get your seat, what might help is to pull the bolster slightly away from the wall. And then you'll have this space between at that point if you really crave that connection. Mine is not completely touching. It's not meant to be today. I'm good with the verticality of what I have. Let your arms stretch open to goalpost position. Feel the elbows and their direction opening the chest. Eyes relaxing, whether they're open or closed. You start to feel the movement in the rib cage. You may feel the movement is in the belly. Sometimes you think rib cage, and then you draw your attention and it's not quite expansive as you expected. So the expansive expectation really is the abdominals first, the ribs. And that might be tricky. This is a back bend. It's an arched position. So the bolster's low on the spine. It's not high up. So the rib expansion will take some energy to draw out. And let's just receive the benefits of circulation when our legs are upside down. Feeling and breathing. And if it feels kind of stuck for you, right, maybe it feels robotic. Sometimes these shapes can. You might let your head just roll gently from side to side. There's that fluidic motion back towards the heart and the lungs is happening, right? You're reversing the effects of gravity on the heart, on the lungs, and the brain. So let the brain relax back. And now with the dedication to the wall, okay, we'll bend the knees a little bit, right? And then see if you can just shift the feet directly over the pelvis, move the feet off of the wall, holding the sand. And as you bend through the legs, you can feel that kind of circulation blend, right? It's a nice blend around the thighs. Like if I even do it kind of a little more than a micro bend, I like to kind of feel that strength kind of working its way through the leg into the hip joint, right? I mean, the daily posture is standing on my feet, stepping on them again and again with my habits, but right now my pelvis is as centered as I can get it. I don't have a postural habit happening right now. I imagine we have postural habits in our poses too, but I can feel this anticipation of the ribs as I bring the feet away from the wall. My heart's got to stay pretty strong and bend the knees and then reach for the sand. You can toss it overhead or slip it off of your feet. And then I want us to bring the blanket a little farther back behind, and you're going to scoot your way off of the wall, right? So I'm going to go back and forth, side to side, kind of readjust things. And then when I place my feet, still they can go up the wall. So now what I want you to do is have your feet on the bolster. So go back far enough so you could still, if your feet are on the bolster, your toes could kind of, your big toe could touch the wall. Okay, you'll find out how to sort this out. And then just let the feet step out as wide as the bolster, not wider. You don't want to fall off. And then windshield wiper so the knees go side to side. Okay, feeling as you go side to side. If you're concerned about the knees going too far down, you can always put your blocks on the side as little bumpers. I like that sometimes, but I don't feel enough flexibility that that's going to happen. Okay. There's usually some tension right through IT band. And this movement is great for the glutes. Okay. What else will be good is if we get our ball and we're going to, instead of moving the knees side to side, we're going to move the hips side to side. So we'll place the ball under the left buttock, okay, which has connection to our glute, right? Glutes are there. And then press down. Feel if you're, like, let's say your hand was pushing the ball, you'd have some different, I don't know, there's different properties of pushing with my hand, because I do quite a bit of that. We do a lot with our hands, but try to feel your rear push into the ball and then going side to side with the hips. Try to keep pressing down into the ball. So you're using pressure and movement. It doesn't have to hurt, right? The goal is not that it's causing discomfort, but it's increasing that the fluids that are moving in and around these tissues. It draws the fluid to the area as you roll. Okay, that happens with obviously long holds and poses too. But ball rolling is a massage pattern, right? It's a circulation event. Okay, now as you push in, right, what I want you to do now is center and place the ball at the sacrum. So the final ball in the spine, but it's kind of between, it's a connector between tailbone and waist, isn't it? So it's not quite the very final spot, but you might find, okay, I'm going to center onto the ball. I'm just going to center. And then as much weight as I can just relax into the ball, the buttock muscles relax, not holding that area. Just feel your feet onto the bolster. You have to have them on the bolster versus the wall for this, because otherwise you grip your glutes. And just let your belly move with the breath. Take about 3 more breaths here with the sacrum. Pressing onto the ball. And then move the ball. You have to push into your feet to lift the hips just a bit, and then move the ball to the right glute. Yeah, and as you lower down, you might place the ball, and now move your hips side to side, closer to the side of the glute. Maybe that feels better for you to have it closer to the edge, to stretch into the lateral rotators, right, the hips, and that's great, right? So go with the flow, go with the motion. Go mode. Now, when you move, your hips are going to be moving, right? I know the knees go too, but it's really more hips. A few more moments. Some days this is louder than other days with the ball. This is the louder day. Okay, now take the ball aside and let's take figure 4. If you bring the left foot to the wall, the right ankle to the left knee, play with how close you are to the wall. If you want to use your ball at the sacrum, now you know that where to place that. But if you decide, I like kind of the pure and simple. So when I have my figure 4 pose, I do want to be close enough to the wall and have that right knee shifting a little bit to the side. But let's say you go really close. You just say, go a little closer. My foot's going to be maybe a little bit higher, a little bit higher. It might feel like more of a stretch. So you kind of have to be the one who decides this one. If there's a ball at the sacrum, right, is that going to be a better stretch? It blends abdominal work is what it does. Yeah, I think it's a better stretch with ball, but I'm really trying to find the area that is in the glute that I was feeling when I was rolling, but even more so. So this kind of wakes it up. Now you might be missing pulling the knees to the chest. Like, what about this one? Well, you could do that. You could. I want to use the wall for this one, just to feel the definition of my hip, my landing. Again, you could be flat on the ground. You don't have to have a ball under you. That might be too odd. That's okay. Now look towards the left foot. Okay, notice if the foot is turned out or turned in. Make sure it's straight up the wall, parallel. Try to feel through the corners of the bottom of the foot of the wall. This is the nice part about this one. So the base of the big toe, really try to feel if that can push. It depends on how you posture your standing. And if you tend to kind of slack to the side of your foot, like you look at your, right, if you look at your shoes, right, you can tell where you put your weight after time, where it wears out in the sole of the shoe. So this one, you might really focus on the inside line of the foot. Okay. Now, if you happen to have a ball, you probably want to remove it for where we're going here. So now we're going to lower the left foot to the bolster, cross the right leg over the left leg, and then pull the left leg over to the right purely by the right leg that's climbed over the left leg. See the things we do, huh? The things we do for these bodies. So this is a counter twist. You might decide, wow, that's kind of a lot for me. And if it's too much, you can always go into a different counter pose. You can have, for instance, your knees together towards the right and maybe put a sandbag here. Some of us, this is a lot on the knees. So if I cross over and I move a little bit back on my mat, just a tiny bit, it seems a little easier for me. My knee is not as high of a degree of bending. So let's take a few moments. Let the left arm stretch back beside your head. Your right hand could rest on the ground. It could actually touch to the right leg, just inviting that sense of deepening this area that's probably kind of stuck, and it's hopefully stuck together so that you are together right in these areas, but just trying to kind of loosen up a little bit of the holding patterns. You could gently arch the spine and kind of arch your mind about it, just breathing, mind arching. Okay, now really check in with this from waist to hip. Knees back center, lower the arms down, uncross the right leg, bring the knees side to side to that windshield wiper again. I love this one. This is a go-to. Oftentimes, you can do this sitting, laying on your back. It's about it. I don't think you can do this standing very well. But as you let the knees shift side to side, feeling that draw into the arch of the spine, and then as you come back up to the wall, place the right foot at the wall. Again, you want to feel like, okay, I'm pushing into the wall, firm, left ankle to right knee. Okay, these are really good basic alignment work. Okay, so feeling where not only your foot touches the wall, but the right side of your sacrum area, your sacroiliac, but interesting arch here in that part. So the left hand could press into the left inner leg. You know what we used to do on this one was we would put a block and press on the leg. I suppose that is something we did. I kind of like this idea of doing a little bit of action with pressing with my hand. Okay, and some of you were using a ball. So you would lift up, place the ball, and maybe just give it a try. And who knows? It's okay to try it on the second side if the first side you decide you didn't keep it or you didn't try it. Just give it a try or not. Yeah, my foot changes at the wall a little bit with the ball. It kind of drops. So I have to keep that stability in the leg bones. Remember, we work a bit with resistance to strengthen the bones. So try to feel where you push a little bit into that wall with the right foot. And if you decide, I like to take the foot off the wall and bring the knees to the chest, we'll go for it. Okay? Yeah, sometimes this very specific alignment work can be really nourishing, right? For our alignment. I don't really think about nourishing my alignment, but let's go for it, huh? What a topic. Okay, the left foot is trying to flex to protect the knee joint. The right foot has to flex. Okay, now when you feel how this leg bone structure, like the inner right left leg, has a little bit of pulse, right? There's a little direction of stretch there. Now, as you lift up to remove the ball, if you got it, you're going to lower the right foot down on the bolster. Now, this left leg, when it crosses over, the knee's going to poke over to the right. It's not going to stay open like this, okay? It's okay not to. And then I like to kind of press into the inside line of my right foot, and then knees go left, yep. Right arm stretches back besides the head, and you might decide, not sure if I'm getting the right sensation. So you can always come back to step one. You can start with kind of that super cross, right? It's quite the crossover of the left leg. It's really just as high of a crossover you could do with your leg bones, isn't it? And then when you let the knees go left, there's a nice deep arch in the spine. You could put the ball there. It would kind of help the anticipation of the maneuver in the hip, or just be with it. Okay, right arm reaches back. Maybe the left hand stays to the ground, maybe on the breathing muscles, maybe touches to the left leg. Maybe not any destination yet. And as the right arm is reaching back, see if you can find an awareness where you just kind of drop into the pose. That you feel where the extremities are moving. And the centerpiece of the body is expanding and relaxing. And it's about receiving the practice. Purpose is to receive wellness. So it doesn't need to be a struggle. And so if the knees are struggling, you can uncross and bring them together to the left side. And I imagine you're still going to feel a stretch. It's not going to take away. If it hurts, it's not worth it, right? If you're feeling around the joint that it's just prying into the ligament, it's just ouch, then yeah, the only way to get a Band-Aid on it is to get out of it. No Sand-Aids. All right, now take a few more breaths here. Feel the arch through the back. And now as you come out, you want to feel like you can move from the hip bones first, and then the leg kind of switching out. So feel where the left hip presses, and then use your abdominals. Like you have to crank a little bit in the stomach to bring the knees back center. And then as you uncross, let the feet come up to the wall and push into it. And then we'll take our ball or a block. If you don't have a ball, you can place a block between the knees. And be sure you're close enough. You might have to kind of use your spine traction to move your way, kind of caterpillar your way to the wall. Little caterpillar movements. Yeah, okay. Lift up the hips and stretch the arms overhead with or without the blanket under your head. It's all up to you. Okay? Lower the spine. Oh, this is a great one for our back. Now be careful of that blanket under your head. Probably left side is better. Even though you feel like, well, there's not as much padding, we don't want to over flex our neck here. So you're using this as an opportunity to help out your spine from its rounding, right? This is big. So when I push into my feet, I'm going to lift up the hips. And as I stretch my arms overhead, it climbs up my spine into my shoulders. And then I lower down. This is great. I love this one. Okay, and really see if you can settle slow in the vertebrae as you lower down the pelvis. Probably the slower you go, this isn't caterpillar pose, but I'm thinking about caterpillars on this one. This feels like you kind of go a little bit up through each little movement, each little layer. Okay, now when you do come down the next time, feel if you can get your arms to reach behind you. Now, I guess, arms, you might think of arms as different than shoulders, but they're so intertwined with reaching. So as you let the spine track down, okay, push into your feet, relax your buttock muscles, arms reach to the legs now, and bring your knees just enough in you can remove the ball. Okay, actually, see what it feels like when you bring the legs just enough in, because we are going to do a bit of core today. Just what it's like when you're upside down here with the leg position. You can kind of feel the bones right out from the sacrum press. And then when you remove the ball, okay, be here, let the legs stretch straight up and feel the tailbone kind of press down. Like, see if you can go tailbone. Okay. What's above the tailbone might feel like it's slightly lifting off the floor. It's ever so tiny though. And you can't put your hand under that area, it's stuck. Okay, now move the legs towards the wall. You can feel that faint arch in that lower spine area. The abdominals get active. And then I want you to bend the knees and you don't have to make these funny hand expressions. Take a block and we're going to put ourselves into a full bridge, and then we're going to get kind of really focus in this core land. So we're going to make the blanket, actually keep it low. I'm going to change my mind here. Caterpillar back. Now I'll demo why we want to be just a little bit back away from the wall. So one block is fine. Two is probably more comfy, but I'll demonstrate it with one so you get the idea of how far away you are from your wall. I just slide the block horizontal under the tailbone area so it's not too high on my back at all. Right? It's sacrum, tailbone. And then I'm going to try to let the feet push into the wall perfectly. So I want to kind of seal it. So I feel like my block is just about tipping, just little tip. Okay, it's like the block's tailbone. Okay, now if you find, well, wait a minute, I don't want my block to tip at all. That's okay. You can push a little bit back, or you go farther down and really kind of seal it. So this glute area, it wraps around so the hip flexors stretch open. And if you're lucky to have a sandbag in easy reach, or you want to get up to get one, place it across the upper thigh, right, the thigh lid. And as the sand is there, you have to work on the ribs, just lift, and then the shoulders roll down and in towards the spine. Yeah, don't worry about perfecting the shoulder position. Yeah, that takes I think it takes a lot of practice to feel like this rib cage can comfortably open, but it affects my back muscles a lot. It takes out the discomfort or the compression in the back. So if you feel like, okay, I do this, my back is kind of upset, you can bend your knees, put your feet on the bolster, that's fine. But if there's other things you can do in your life that will help this, it's things like place a belt behind you, hold it with both hands, open the chest. Those are really helpful for back bends. So the chest openers are, and that's a daily posture that we have challenges with because we round our back a bit. So press back into the shoulders. You can do robot arms if you like that. And just receive this nice length in this core land, this full reach. Breathing. Maybe feel if you can scoot those shoulders under and in a little bit more. Expand the chest open. Let your eyes close. Yeah, should you push really deep with the feet? Right? You want to find an awareness where the feet are the root. And of course, we know that the roots of the feet affect our whole posture. So when we take the sand off this time, okay, we're going to now work up the center line of the body. So bend the knees if they're not already bent, and then you'll push into your feet and feel when you press, the tailbone scoops under, and you'll slide the block out. And as you lower down through the spine, you can kind of wag your tail a little bit. Sometimes this feels good on the lower back. And the back is back down. Nice work. Okay. So let's come on up. We're going to roll up so you can take a seat. You can roll to the side if that seems more comfortable for your back. We're going to come on up and take the feet, place the feet onto the bolster and place a ball between. If you don't have a ball, you can use a block. But let's give this a try. So my hands down beside my hips. I'm going to scoot my hips closer to the bolster and then place my feet at the wall. Okay. So I'm holding on to the ball. Well, I mean, I'm squeezing it a little bit. My hands aren't holding, but I can talk about my extremities as holding something, huh? So feel when you reach down with your hands forward, but on the other side of your hips towards the underbelly of the legs. You can feel kind of this forward lean and just see if you can lift up the heart, lift up your heart or the universal heart, and bring the arms to reach forward. Okay. Okay, now as far as the tailbone goes, right, it's a little bit under, right? It's not as if you feel the tail pushing back because you're sitting on your seat, right? That's tricky. So push firm into the wall, okay? And then let your spine shift back so that you hold the underbelly of both legs. Bend the knees, take the feet off the wall. Open up a little bit through your chest. That just means try to lift your heart. Breathing. Okay, now lower the feet on the bolster so they're a little farther down. Squeeze the ball. Everything gets all kind of cluttered with energy right here in the hip flexors, doesn't it? Okay, now bring the feet back on up. Breathe again. To breathe again. Feet to the wall if you can. Bring the hands back behind the hips, fingers point forward. Be calm on your wrists, right? Don't over anticipate that you can push down and firm it up. See if you can lift up the heart. Okay, and then stretch the arms forward besides the legs. Push into your wall. Breathe. Okay, and then remove the ball. And we're going to scoot our blanket. We're going to pull the blanket in and scoot ourselves on it. So I want you to fold your blanket so it's a good quarter fold, and then shift your feet off the wall and take a seat on one or two blankets. You choose. Okay, now bring the feet together, the knees out. All that stuff that was going on in the hip flexors is probably a little bit snagged up here. So hold the ankles and go into that cobbler's pose. So feet together, knees out, simple. Now keep in mind, if I have my two blankets, it might be easier. But if you can tilt on this one at the pelvis, and you kind of have the arch in the spine happening versus this rounding back, then you're fine with one. But if you're not, use another blanket. Okay. All right, now feel as the right foot draws in. What I want you to do is take your right foot towards the left inner leg or the blanket, and we're going to take our bolster, pull on the bolster handle, stretch the left leg out to the left side, so it's about 10 or 11 o'clock on the left side is your left leg. And you're going to lean forward into your bolster. Hands are on the short end. I do like doing this with my short end of the bolster at the wall base and then lift up. I like that a lot. And there's other things you can add to this. If you feel like, I think I got this, I can do it, you can add things. You can put a sandbag on the right thigh. It's going to be kind of nice to do, but put it pretty high up, really high up on the thigh, not on the knee. If your right knee doesn't like this pressure, you can put a ball under it. And if the left knee doesn't like this pressure, you can put a block under it, right? So there's a lot of things you can do to support if things are starting to feel a little bit on the edge with the joints, right? So what I have is sand here. For me, I put the ball under the knee. I mean, I can do these things, yes, but you know, I imagine these joints, you know, they get a little worn out. Okay. I don't see the replacement in the store to pick up and put an insert in there, so I'll just do this as time goes on, help it out. But this thicker part of the body, right, the core, the ribs, the breathing muscles, I don't know, that can use the resistance so that you actually thrive. So pressing, now if the bolster wall thing doesn't work, you can push it a little bit away from the wall. Yeah, they're both pretty good, aren't they? So tilt forwards, hands are up on that short end for a few more breaths. Okay, feel the ribs stretch front. Right, that mysterious core body. And now press into the short edge of the bolster, and then as you lower the bolster down, yeah, you do want to be far enough away from the wall. It's not going to be, impede this bolster's drop, and then it's not up at the wall. Right? We don't want it like this. That's not the focus there. So place the left foot on top of the bolster. Yeah, you probably don't need the block anymore if you have that. And then let's take a twist. So I want you to just kind of feel the twisting ability of your mid body. So go a little left, a little right, and then eventually you're going to the leg that's in front, right? So you're going to turn to the left, place a block behind you, and hold on to the left knee with the right hand and feel your way into the appropriate height with the back prop if you're going to use the block. I mean, a floor could be okay. If you have a shorter limb like me, this might work better. So hold on to that left knee. Now I'm not on the patella, right? I'm lower, right? I definitely place it so I'm kind of at the top of the tibia, and I just right between that and the knee is a really good slot there. So I hold and lift my heart, and then I try to take that twist to the left, only the right amount. If you need to reset things on the blanket you're sitting on, just take the time to do that. There's no time like the present. So feeling the heart lift, with your eyes relaxed, breathing, feeling how the ribs have this rotation as you exert the breathing cycle, right? So twists are a little more of exertion on the diaphragm, but they're nice. They're nice poses to help tone. But to tone into the diaphragm, your breathing muscle, right? You want the abdominals to relax with the breath. So there's already resistance if they passively move with the breath. It's like an exercise, pulsing. Okay, now when you come out, right, it doesn't feel like kind of like a stretch, like a hamstring stretch, but it is really quite helpful here in our rib cage and our spinal column between the discs. So twists are one really important thing to do, gentle twists. So we'll take any ball that you have under the knee out, and you're going to take off the sand and the block away to the side, and then take the left leg and stretch it back. And so the right leg is in pigeon pose. The left leg stretches back so the hip flexor reaches. And then I really like this variation. Here's the challenge though I'm finding. If you need more blanket under your seat, you can add another one that makes it easier. When I lean down, I can have my bolster like this. Okay, one option. I can have my bolster under my chest, head turns to the side. Turn the bolster horizontal. This can be quite easeful, I think, because it gives you both the arch, but the breathing muscles, right, can take a little bit of kind of bowing out here. Still strengthening. And then I think the final option would be the bolster be under your forehead, but you might have to scoot back a bit so that your forehead would be just what's down on the bolster. So if the bolster's up against the wall, if you're too close, you could try it this way, but the idea is that the bolster is just right at the hairline, right? Yeah, I think this is the most popular one I've seen. Okay, but if you're really hugging into your bolster, you like this, you can also put the block on the other end of the bolster under it and hug the bolster. So many options, huh? Too many. Okay. On your prop option, educator. All right, take a few more moments in the hip. Settle into the right hip. Feel the spine. Definitely strengthening to the whole position. Yeah, it's definitely a tug on the back. It's a bit of a tug on the tail tugging. Ribs expand. Okay, now when you come out, you're just going to go back to that seated pattern, right? It's not a big change. We stay grounded on our seat. So you might plot your way with your back rounding a bit, flexing the spine. You know how you do cat-cow arch and flex? So when you walk your hands back on the bolster or down to the ground now, you're going to try to let the left leg swing out to the side and then forward. And you might take a simple cross-legged position for a moment and just find your line, which is always a good thing to think. Find your line. Find the line from the tailbone up the spine, shoulders back. Okay. Now let's take the bolster forward lengthwise. Let the right leg stretch out to the side about 1 or 2 o'clock. And the left leg has maybe a ball under it. Now, of course, you could crank the foot closer to the right groins. That might be good. You have to play with it. Like, how do your sitting bones support you? If you feel like you're rounding and you can't quite sit up, just get another blanket under your seat. It's that easy. It's just moving the seat up so the knees don't go as high like this, right? Or the back doesn't round as much. And if, the more you practice, and some of us just the flexibility is different regardless of how much we do. So it's okay to accept and use more props. It really is. Probably intelligent, right? To help your alignment. So take a sandbag to the left side. And then take in the bolster and just lift it up, but don't let it levitate, right? I again like that. I went a little too far back to access this, but I could probably go with it. Yeah, and you can kind of feel your gills here, right? So as if you had gills, right? You're floating, you have some floating ribs, but you're trying to get things to float in the rib spaces. Yeah, so if my arms are reaching to that short end of the bolster. Yeah, again, you can have the bolster closer to you. You just try it out. Doesn't mean that the wall is the highest level. I don't think it's going to be when you feel like you're integrating the practice into yourself, right? So I think this is nice to have ideas of what to do and give some structure to our practice. I think is great, but ultimately you've got to make the decisions, right? Where the prop goes, how much you use with the props, more blankets, less blankets. And now when I have my bolster up, what I also like is that this brings my ribs and my lungs it's sometimes exasperating, right? If I have the bolster, I'm pushing into it higher up with my lung work, but it's really nice to do before you twist. So when you lower down the bolster and you place the right foot on top, there was even seconds ago, I could feel that extra pressure, and now it's like, okay, pressure went back down. The body has its ups and downs all the time. So I place my foot on top of the bolster. I let myself do a little bit of twist to right, to left, just feeling my ribs, maybe kind of typewriter shifting right side to side can feel interesting. And then when I center up through the vine of the spine, find your line from the heart back to the tailbone. And then again, we probably need a block behind us, maybe. But as you take that turn, take it slow, you're going to go right, and you want to keep the heart lifted, the left hand to the right leg below the knee, and then reach to the block behind you and give yourself the opportunity to create some spaces, like some reaches. I mean, I know you don't have like a rope to hold right here, but it's not a bad idea to go, oh, well, what if I did have something kind of pulling it apart? Because what happens with maturity, right, is things get closed in and drop, right? Gravity will have you as you get older. So we're trying to get some more, lubrication, hydration, get things opening when we can. And it's good for circulation just as much, right? So feel that turn. Who knows? If you do a lot of this, kind of like play with it, you're in your own space. You can do whatever you want. You might decide, oh, wow, when I do this and then I just turn more. So for me, I turned more. I was a little more turned than the last side. Play with it. So feel the hand touching onto the right leg. Maybe it's lower than you anticipated, but it's holding. Breathing, feeling that low back trying to lift up. You can even rub the low back with your knuckles and push down and lift up with the heart. Breathe. Don't hold the belly in. Let the belly move with the breath. Okay, take a few more moments before we come out. We're almost there. Just a few more. Who knows? Maybe 2 of your ribs are going to help you turn a little bit further. Okay, now when you come out, now what I find with that twist is that I ultimately want to feel the ribs expand out when I'm in my deepest part of my twist. Not that they hold tight. So when you come forward, you can get rid of all your props that are, well, actually, just some of them, your sand, your ball, or your block, that kind of stuff. And then we'll take that right leg to reach back, and we'll move into pigeon pose with the left leg forward. Yeah, so you can tell that, let's say you're feeling like this is just, I'm stuck. What do I do? Well, here's what you would do. You would take another blanket, is usually a pretty good solution. And you kind of creep over it. Much better for me. Well, for anybody probably. Even if you find, oh, I can go lower, it's a little easier in my low back. Okay. So when I lower down, I like bolster horizontal. This is my preference on this, but your bolster could be straight lengthwise, hug the bolster. You have your forehead on the bolster. You could still bring your forehead downwards here. And then let the back gently move with your breath. You kind of feel what's interesting here when you're prone is that when you in-breath, right, your back kind of floats up, right? Some of these shapes push pressure in one area, and then you can feel the flotation device of our ribs. Now connect for a few more moments into your legs. Feel the left hip and the right thigh with how it reaches back. Yeah, just don't overdo it. Don't anticipate you've got to bend your back leg and crank it around, but just feeling it's almost as if the more kind of weight you trust into the hip, It's quite helpful just to get that weight bearing into the hip. Yeah, do your weights, right? This is our kind of our weight work, which is both putting weight and waiting. Waiting for weight to happen. Okay. Now with my back kind of pushing and definitely more of a cat position, right, for my spine. We'll walk on back and we're going to come around to face away from the wall. So swing the right leg forward. This is a good water break or whatever you need between the sides. This is a good moment for that. If you have to get up and do something, this is the time. So what you're going to do is take your bolster, place it up next to the wall, next to your, let's see. Let's do this. We're going to need our blocks under our hands coming up. So I want you to set up so you've got a blankie under your knees. I usually just put it right at my knee and then up my thigh and then lift up and then it's in a good spot. That's how it works for me. Feet are at the wall. The other blanket's going to go away because we are going to do side sage. We're going to do it, but we got to do our standing work because otherwise we'll get too tired. Okay, so blocks to the side yard, at least I might. And I want you to have your hands to stretch open. And first things first, feel the feet push into the wall. And then let your hips push down towards the floor. So you push away to stretch up the waist. Okay, now come back and kind of feel this. So we're doing front line, back line. Alternate chest stretches back towards the legs. Now, round the back as if we skipped cat-cow, didn't we? So we're going to go forward, roll through the hip and the spine, and then move back. And I would be a little cautious on overdoing it. So feel how the arms have that reach into the shoulders when you stretch back your hips. And then when you come forward, it's also from the knee to the thigh lid that's moving straight forward and reaching. Okay, so this is one where you can kind of hold the frame and breathe, but it's a wrist bother. I think it's a bother for the wrist, to be honest. So feel that length, okay, for another, 4 seconds. And then come back into table. And let's try getting the quads to stretch. So we'll take a block. I think the block height pretty high is going to be beneficial here because it's so much more support. So my knees are going to scoot to each other. We're going to take the right foot forward and step so the hip on the back leg is lengthening. Now you got both hips working quite a bit here, but stay with that forward motion. See if you can push your left foot into the wall a bit and reach the right knee forward away from the wall. Maybe move the blocks back towards the wall a little bit so you can work with your left thigh, stretching or stressing, whichever you call it. It's kind of both, isn't it? All right, now push into your right foot so your chest moves a little down, lift up the back knee, and then take a moment when the blocks go a little farther forward. You got to support your right knee, right? You don't want the blocks back here and then your knee tips over the ankle. But the left foot for me is kind of up at the wall. It's pretty interesting to push into the wall with my foot. Now I want you to scoot your way back with your right foot so the left heel lowers down towards the floor behind you, right next to the wall, of course, but this gives you the opportunity to have your heel a little bit up, right? Or maybe it goes downwards. Now mine's not quite perfectly feeling like, yeah, I like that, heel down. It's kind of stressed out. So I'm going to have the heel a little bit up. What I want you to do is keep the right knee in its bending. Maybe scoot the foot a little forward, little caterpillar moves. Reach the chest forward, breathe. Okay. Now step the left foot to the right foot. Take a forward fold. If you want to move your blocks forward, that might be great. You might move them forward and then hold your elbows and let the spine drain down. So the feet about hips distance, not too far apart. And then let the spine drain out. And the weight of your brain lowers down. Yeah, if this isn't your cup of tea, you can put your hands on your blocks and be here. Right, this is still great for my back muscles, my spinal column, good one. All right, you gotta decide, you pick it. Okay, now take a few more moments here, forward fold. Head nods, maybe a little side to side. Chin to chest. You can kind of feel the skin cells in the face, everything kind of flushes, warms up, blood flow. Get upside down, it's good for us. Okay, now bend the knees, reach for the blocks, bring them into your sides of your feet. Step the right leg back and just feeling as you go maybe a little backwards on this side, right? We'll bring the knee down towards the end, but you want to get a feeling of, actually no, let's go the same, well, let's plot it the same way. It's probably smart. We'll go knee down on the right leg if you can. If you decide, no, I don't want to do that, that's all up to you. But feel when you feel that pressure of the lunge on the left thigh, that knee reaching, but careful that your left knee is not over your toes. It could be above the ankle and a little forward, but you have to feel the stretch path of the right hip flexor, how this reaches. And so if my knee goes farther forward, yes, it's a little better stretch on my right thigh. That is true, but I have to be a little careful here. Right? I don't want to cause any knee problems that are going to come along from this. So I'm going to try to keep my chest lifted. Breathe. Okay, the key is to keep the natural arch of the spine continuous on this whole process here. Breathe, breathe, breathe. Okay, now we're going to reach the left foot, scoot it a little back, or caterpillar it back. This doesn't look caterpillarish, but you kind of get the idea. Your toes under right foot, lift up the back knee. So if the foot touching the wall, like from the ball of the heel, is like excruciating, well, then don't do it. You might scoot your foot a little bit away. You might try to get your heel down initially. You might find just the right spot for your foot at the wall, and that's going to be what you do. Okay. Now, if you don't like to move your back leg down or your heel down, you could still stay with this left knee lunging, lifting the chest. Then just feel, we are trying to get the right calf to lower and the heel to lower so the calf stretches. You know, one side could be just so different than the other. Your dominant leg, probably a little bit toughened up there. Lots of contracting and driving and all those things that contract. And then what's a muscle to do? What's a muscle to do? Okay. All right, now when we come on into this next phase, right, we got the heel reaching. I want you to take a wide stance. So you're going to turn the left foot to the right, turn so your blocks go to the right. You just have your feet in a wide stance. You could have your right foot touching the wall, but I don't like to make it so different on each foot, the sensation. So I just have the wide stance. Feet are parallel and then turning in a little bit. And then take your blocks forward and lower down your hands. If the blocks under your hands is not your pathway here, right? This isn't for everybody. Some of us will decide we want to hold our ankles because it's kind of cool, right? Our crown of our head can go towards the floor. It's a neat feeling. Some of us, that's the last feeling we want. So maybe we have our blocks, but they're a little lower. Yeah, you could challenge yourself with lowering the blocks or get rid of them. And stretch out the chest. Yeah, this is kind of a wide downward dog, really. It's nice because the wrists don't get stressed. The chest can freely reach without the pressure in my shoulders if I was to put all my weight in my hands and then push back, right? Now I have all the weight in my feet. Right? My legs are used to that. Breathing. Let your head nod a little side to side. Ribs expand. Okay, now carefully, we're going to shift back forward onto the hands. So if you're holding onto your ankles, come back to your hands, bend the knees, and then take your blocks. Actually, you probably need them. So take them to the left towards the left foot and besides it, and then lower the right knee down. Take the left leg back as well. And we're going to set up for side sage. So what I think we're going to do is come on down to your hip, and we're going to set up so we use the wall for it. Okay, I really like this version because you can touch the wall. So if you got a blanket near the wall, just put that there closer to the wall, and then grab your other blanket, and you're going to stack it up so that you have enough height so that there'll be a support for your head. And some of us might find it's too much support. It's too, like, just, you can tell your neck goes this way. So you will have to be the one who decides. Some of us like, higher pillows than others. And it's just kind of the way of rest, right? So you'll figure it out very soon, I think. Okay. Higher pillars. Okay. So the blocks are going bye-bye. I don't think I'm gonna need them. Okay. But a ball is nice and a sandbag is also good. Okay, so pull the sandbag near your right knee and have the ball as well. And let's kind of get ourselves set so we can go side reaching. Okay, so let's see, the last leg we had lunging was the left. Yeah, so we're going to take the left leg to reach back. Yeah, that makes sense. So we're going to now go up this left side body. So take a ball, place the ball under the left leg. That leg is reaching back, and I'm leaning into my bolster with my, of course, my right arm, my right thigh. But you can kind of feel the leverage. We usually use our lower levers, right, for propelling ourselves forward. So it's kind of interesting when you try to get your levers to lean and to get this movement in the side band. I think it's kind of fascinating. So you want to take your sand up to the hip or the ribs, a little higher. You decide. Hip's kind of certain it's going to stay. And then lean into your blankets and stretch the left arm up. If you go, well, it's too high, probably it'll be easier in your shoulder joint if it's higher. Okay, if I have my arm lower, it kind of cranks around and it's going to cycle around a little bit more. Figuratively tension cycle, and not a tension cycle, which is another thing maybe, but tension cycle. So you play with it. If you decide you don't want to use the wall, that's fine, right? You can have your arm to kind of drain down over your head, relax your left arm this way. If it works, you might find you can do that if you push a little bit into the wall and then you let your arm release. Kind of surprising how this wall thing does change the game a bit with the shoulder. So let the ribs rest into the bolster and let that left arm find where it works to give you that balance in the side. You can walk up the wall, you can go farther away from the wall, you can distance yourself if you're too close. And I would play with it a little bit because probably your initial marker, right, is maybe it's too close. Yeah, these aren't like set in they're not set in stone, right? Everyone's a little different with receptivity on these. And actually for me, farther away makes my shoulder upset. So it's a little bit too clingy on the outer rotator cuff here. So you want to find out, okay, maybe this is easier, but it doesn't hurt. Okay. So what does hurt mean, right? If there's tension cycling and all, you can feel that as your dominant sensation. Palm can touch, maybe. Okay, feel the torso stretching. Take a few moments here. Breathing. Now when you come out, all you're going to do is go through the center body to go both rib sides. So Careful of the back bottom, the left knee. So when I move my sand off, I don't want to fling my knee out. What I'm going to do is roll into my right hip and then move onto your back on your bolster. Maybe place the ball between the knees so you have something that will be supportive of your kind of your hip cycle of circulation, and then lower back. Now, this is pretty challenging one. So you can put sand on the ribs. It's an intermission between the two sides. It's not going to be a long one. So maybe just open up the chest. Let your head maybe rock a little side to side, but really opening the chest. So I like to feel my shoulders kind of curl around the bolster and the ribs centering. If your back doesn't feel compressed or giving you signs of discomfort, good sign. If it is, you can put a block under your pelvis. You can also bring the feet a little farther apart, knees pushing into each other or the ball. That can alleviate. But again, it's how flexible you are in the ribs that affects your back comfort level. It's a big part of restorative is getting these ribs to open up with our breathing, our sandbags, that's helping our back. Okay, now when you're ready to roll to the left side, take your time. You might want to just bring the knees to the left. You might take the ball, but be easeful in your neck. So just roll into the left side. Yep. Okay, left elbow down between the blankets and the bolster. Now you might use one blanket. Some of you might not be a fan of this big stack up plan, but I like it. Some days, and it's not always the same. For now, I do. So I'm placing the ball, or if you don't have a ball, use a block under the right knee. Right, the left hip is kind of down from the bolsters. Everything's not stuck together here. Yep, you want fluidity. So get a sandbag, draw it up to the right hip. Okay, get that traction. And then reach overhead. You might find, this is interesting for my waist, the stretch through my ribs. The right knee may enjoy bending, but keep in mind that even if your joint, it has that natural extension or the angle is good, you got to be careful that you can move your hip too. You can stretch the frontal hip. The hip flexor can reach, the psoas can stretch. So it's really tricky to find the balance in the joints because we're used to using our, it's kind of, we live in an elementary postural experience, right? Okay, my knee bends, but we forget about these center pieces to stretch. So use them to help out the tissues that are close to the knee joint, even though it's up here, it all matters, right? All of it matters. How supple you are in the upper body affects. Now, if your hand is at the wall and your head rolls to the back, it might feel like, well, that was the missing ticket for me. So this wall thing could be really nice. Yeah, it's probably rare that we use the wall for side sage in this Zoom class, but I like to add it when I can. Okay, now feel the traction in the waist. Take a few more moments. Breathing. Reaching with the arm. Or not, if you don't want to reach with your arm, it could be down on a bolster. You can have the side of your head on the blanket or the back of your head. You could try both. Okay, now feeling how the waist extends. Right, a waist extends with the spine. Okay, so you can kind of feel the front of the spine here, even though it seems like it's far away, it's all pretty compact, really. We aren't that big of a piece of, we're definitely small in how things interact inside, so everything affects everything, right? So as we start to come out of this one, what I want you to take yourself in towards is to roll left, push, and like maybe the sand falls off, maybe it's clinging to you. And let's take our bolster. We're going to place it closer to the wall now. Swing around and taking your bolster on top of blocks. Now we're not going to go right into bolster bench right now, but I want you to set it up for this. So why don't we take our blocks forward so they're about the second setting, right? The second height, I would say. That's probably best. I don't want you to go too high with the blocks today. So the bolster goes on top, and then we got a blanket on top of that, okay? And now we need our belt. So we're gonna take ourselves a little bit back, right? When we bring our feet up on top, because I know it looks like, who can resist that? I gotta put my feet on the bolster now. Okay, so I want you to take the belt, have it across the rib cage, all right? And let's see how we'll have our legs on the bolster. Why not? Okay, bring the left knee to the chest. Take the belt under the left foot, place it under the foot. And then I want you to cross the left leg to the right. Just reach it over to the right side. Now, what's kind of peculiar is how the right leg, it kind of makes the resistance greater. My right leg is not swerving, it's not bending, so I can't get as far over with my left leg, to be honest. But I want that to kind of hold you, right? So the right back of the pelvis centers, the left leg crosses to the right as far as it could go. This might just be it. Okay, feeling the difference in that low back, that kind of interesting sensation through the hip. Breathing. Okay, left arm stretches straight out to the left side. Take a few more moments. Should feel a pretty strict stretch in the hip. Strict stretching. Okay, now try to move your hip a little bit up and down your left hip. Can you lift it up like you're trying to move your buttock up a little bit and then a little bit down. Okay, and then bring the leg straight up and then place the right foot up into the belt. Push your feet out wide. Kind of wag your tail, actually the tail. Right, your sitting bones are up in the air, so they can't wag quite as much as your tail. And slide the feet together, left leg down on the bolster, right leg crosses over to the left. You can tell you get, if you take the leg a little higher up, you might feel like you're getting around the tightness, but it's there, right arm out to the side. I hope it's there because that's keeping you together in some way. Some ways it's a little tightly wound up, you know. We try. Okay, give a few more moments before we roll it out. We're gonna roll it out and then we'll just rest and marinate in it. Okay, so feel if you bend the right knee, kind of poke through the knee a little bit, feeling the response in the hip. And then just bend into it and slide the belt off your right foot and have your feet on the blanket. I know you got a lot of stack of stuff here. It's kind of odd, isn't it? Place the ball under your left buttock again. I know we've done this one. And then roll. Your feet are higher up now when you're doing the roll. A little higher than they were last time, right? You didn't have blocks under your bolster last time. So take that roll a little bit like you're nudging into the glute. Glute nudging. It's nice when you can be the nudger, right? So you can get just the detail. It could be on the outline of the hip. I like to kind of scrub that area, kind of shearing that area a little bit, shearing the glute right on the border. And then go to the other side. Glute shearing. Yeah, and you might find, well, this side I twist easier, it just kind of rolls around, but a little different from side to side. See if you can give it even opportunity. So we're just trying to keep it equal, right? I'm not gonna try to roll farther under, around, or twist it further. When it starts to go there, try to balance your core. Okay, and then take a few more quick swipes across the right glute area. And then we're going to rest our legs on the bolster. Now, if you like the ball at the sacrum, use it. So if you want to just place that, remember it's going to connect the tailbone to the waist. So it's not going to be the farthest and farthest down, right? It's going to be feel like it kind of squishes a little bit of low back energy and kind of lets it motion out. So if I can let my feet move a little bit apart, relax my toes a little bit, and reach them around. Let my legs find that separation. And likely, if you use the ball, and you don't have to, you can just go minus the ball. That's perfectly fine. Let's say you don't have a ball, you could also use a block. So if I have just the block, well, they're underneath, so forget that. They're under my bolster, I can't use them. So you got a block, you got a ball or nothing, right? But let the pelvis, right, the pelvic rim, this area can relax. The abdominals can gently move with the breath. It's a really nice abdominal caring position. You care for your abdominals. Right, it's like you want them to move with the breath. You don't want to just hold them all in. And we like to think like that, but let the diaphragm strengthen, right? It's going to swoop down to the belly organs and then it's going to draw back up towards the heart. Let your arms relax. If you want to put a sandbag on, it might be really nice for this one across the rib intersection. If it seems too much clutter, don't worry about it. Okay, so sandbag across. I find that if I go kind of high up on my ribs, I have to feel what's good for my back. And you don't want to make it too tender anywhere. If you put sand high and you find that that's too much, you can put the sand from the heart to the belly too, so straight down. That can be really good too. Okay, arms relaxed, breathing. So simply receiving the practice, all that we've done, quite a bit, right? There's always an opportunity here just to settle and just know that that was enough. And receiving your breath and relaxing on your out breath. Let the arms be below the level of the heart so the heart can relax. The blood pressure can lower as the heart rate lowers. Now feeling just the right amount of pulse for your inhale, the right pace. And your out breath, letting go. Reach the hands together. Interlace your fingers. Find what that means. Is it over the chest? Is it overhead? Maybe it starts at the chest and it moves towards the ceiling and then back overhead. Let the thighs be heavy. And then relax the grip of the fingers. Let the arms slide back down to that previous shape or shape-ish, right? It's a little bit out to the side and softening the elbows. And then let's take the sandbag off. If you have an eye pillow, you might still keep that on for a few moments, or just let your natural eye pillows, your eyelids, relax so you can kind of navigate inside. And if you've got the ball, try to remove that. Might be a bit of a test, right? To not reverse some of this releasing. We don't want to over grip. So feel what you could balance to get the ball out, right? So I feel that my upper body, I want to keep that peaceful. So I'm going to just walk my feet in onto the blanket and the knees, and then just roll it out and reduce trying to get my hips really high. Just lower down my hips again. Spinal column releasing. And then as we bring the knees in towards our chest, we're sand free, we're ball free now. We just rock side to side. So nourishing that circulation in the back, kind of widening out the back. And just imagine that the back can be as wide as the front rib spaces. We don't want that to overly round, right? So we create too much rounding in our back, but feel the back on pressing into the floor. It's a nice lengthening for our back muscles. And then roll to a side. Take your time, push to come up. Bring the blanket under your seat. Take a hip lift. It's a little bit of a hip lift. And let the shoulders just smooth out, rolling back and down. Now bring the hands up to meet in front of your heart center. Place the palms. And with that placement, also feel that when hands go together, you can feel the sides of the chest, the elevation of the spine. Breathing in, closing practice. And with exhalation, bowing into that space behind your heart in gratitude.